Namaste, I'm Samtha Aunty, the founder and CEO of Virtual Preschool, where children have fun learning Hindi through English. Today we are going to talk about the infinitive form of verbs. The infinitive form is a fancy way of saying unconjugated verbs. What does unconjugated verb mean? It means that the verb hasn't been changed. We change the word for the verb based on who is talking or whom we are talking about. In other words, the verb is different if it's an I sentence, such as I am playing, versus you are playing. And for each of these subject pronouns that you see on the screen, the verb changes. Let's look at the verb to play, for example. In Hindi, to play is khelna. Khelna is the infinitive form of the verb. It hasn't been conjugated. But if we want to say I am playing, it becomes मैं खेल रही हूँ for a girl and मैं खेल रहा हूँ for a boy. And if we want to say you are playing, it becomes आप खेल रहे हैं. So, did you see how the words changed? For I am playing, मैं खेल रही हूँ, and for you are playing, आप खेल रहे हैं. So, do you see how the words changed? That is called verb conjugation. The form of the verb changes based on who is talking or who we are talking about. And I'm going to go into verb conjugation later, and we're going to be learning that in class. But for now, let's build our Hindi vocabulary by learning the infinitive form of some verbs in Hindi. How do we say to run in Hindi? To run is dodna. Dodna is to run. How do we say to escape by running in Hindi? To escape, but by running. We say bhaagna. Bhaagna. How do we say to win in Hindi? To win is jeetna. Jeetna is to win. So I hope you're seeing a pattern here. Do you see how the infinitive form of the verb has a na at the end? That's true for all Hindi verbs. There's a na at the end in the infinitive form. And again, infinitive form means it's not conjugated. So to win is jeetna. If I say, I won, मैं जीत गई. So that's conjugated, but unconjugated is just jeetna. And for all of these verbs, you'll find a na at the end. How do we say to lie down in Hindi? We say letna. Letna is to lie down. To buy in Hindi? Kharidna. Kharidna is to buy. How do we say to go in Hindi? Chalna. Chalna is to go. How do we say to jump in Hindi? Kudna. Kudna is to jump. How do we say to shower in Hindi? To shower is nahana. Nahana. How do we say to throw in Hindi? Phenkna. Phenkna. To drive in Hindi? Chalaana. Chalaana. Gadi chalaana. To drive a car. How do we say to search in Hindi? To search is dhundna. Dhundna. How do we say to lose in Hindi? To lose is harna. Harna. To live in Hindi? To live is jeena. Jeena. And to make in Hindi? To make is banana. Banana. To cook in Hindi? Pakana. Pakana. To forget in Hindi? Bhulna. Bhulna. And to lose something in Hindi? How do we say to lose something? Khona. Khona. Bale bale for doing great work. Dhanyavad for listening. This again was infinitive form of verbs. And what we're doing here is building our verb vocabulary so that we know what words to use when we're having Hindi conversations. And we will also learn how to conjugate these verbs. So thank you again for listening. I look forward to seeing you in class.